Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're in Matthew chapter 5. And we introduced the Sermon on the Mount yesterday and the day before by looking at the first 2 verses. So today we're going to look at verses 3 through 12, which we know as the Beatitudes. We just did a study of the Beatitudes early in the year, and so we're not going to go through each one individually and take time to do that as we did, a few months ago. But we do want to talk about them generally and see the themes that run throughout. Let's just begin with verse 1 and read through verse 12. When he saw the multitudes, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men revile you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely on account of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Well, let's talk about just the structure of this. Jesus goes up on a mountain, sits down. If he were in a synagogue, he'd be sitting in Moses' seat. Goes up on a mountain, begins this first sermon of 5, the 5 sermons which reflect in a way the 5 books of law, and is the lawgiver for the new age, something that he makes clear beginning in verse 17. And Moses from the mountain received tablets of stone containing commandments, and we associate the phrase thou shalt not with those commandments. Here he gives another short list, not 10 in number. In fact, you can number them different ways. But he gives a different list, but these are not of commands, they're a list of blessings. It's interesting that verses 3 and 10 through 10, he talks generally about a subset of people, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers, and hopefully this is the same subset of people, the people who are his disciples, the people who belong to God. But he stops talking generally in verse 11. He doesn't talk about those who are. He talks about you. Blessed are you. We also notice that these things he calls blessings are not things that we generally associate with blessings, not in our culture, not really in any culture much. And so he's teaching us to see things through his eyes, through God's eyes. I've often compared this to, night vision goggles so that you can see what's there, even though you can't see in the dark, or rose-colored glasses, but these are blood-colored glasses because we're seeing through the lens of the blood of Jesus Christ. But those are really inadequate metaphors. It's like we were looking at the world through a dirty window before, and now Jesus has opened the window so that we see what's really there. And what's really there are the blessings that we find, the fulfillment that we find, the connection to God that we find, and all these things that we have learned to think of as difficulties, challenges, or hardships. Mourning, hungering and thirsting for righteousness specifically. You can't be merciful if someone hasn't done something to you that's bad. Making peace means that you have to enter into conflict. being persecuted, those are all things that bring blessings and should be embraced as things which bring experiences which bring blessings. And so Jesus is opening the window, letting the pure sunlight in so that we can see what's actually there. I want us also to notice in our few seconds that we have left the eschatological consciousness in every one of these. There is a reward and an eternal reward, a looking forward to the end of things, to when God, will receive us to himself, something that God's people have been looking forward to as far back as Psalm 23, when David looks forward to dwelling in the house of the Lord forever. And so there's this eschatological consciousness, there's this looking forward to Judgment Day in every one of these. So we also want to see how they make more expansive claims on us than the commands do. You can take the commands and you can imagine that there are loopholes. You can do the least possible that you can do to fulfill that command. Well, I didn't kill anybody, so there you go. It says, thou shalt not murder. I didn't do that. So the nasty way I treated my brother, no. Jesus is going to teach us throughout this Sermon on the Mount that God's will makes these broad claims on us, and the blessings are more demanding than the commands. And so I wanted us to see that as well. One more thing, how he ties past, present, and future together. This is all encompassing. Rejoice and be glad. Your reward in heaven is great. That's the future. The rejoicing and being glad is in the present. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. That's the past. We have present, future, and past, all connected together in the experience of these blessings, and particularly the blessing of being persecuted and ill-treated for righteousness' sake. Okay. Well, embracing these things will certainly make us different, and that's the point, which is what Jesus teaches us next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.